Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to yet another Narwhal video. Toshio, do you have a thing for the Narwhal or something? Absolutely yes. But even more, there's only so many things that I can show you in a few videos on this plane. It really is diverse, and the experience you're going to have in matches varies quite a bit. So here's the familiar popping of tanks. This is why I fly the Narwhal. I love taking out ground targets. It's rewarding, it's challenging, and I'm a big fan of PvE. And that's pretty much as close as you get in War Thunder to a decent PvE, and that's an interesting mechanic where you sort of ignore the enemy team. At least you're not trying to wipe them out directly, but to go after ground targets. I don't know, this is like something that's been in the meta of War Thunder for ages, but attackers as they stand, and ironically, the Narwhal is one of the few planes that actually functions as an attacker effectively, and it's classified as a jet fighter, but that's the way it goes. If it got an attacker spawn, it would be overpowered, like the F-84. But today we're taking a look, and again, I'm sorry for the sniffles, I still have a cold. Today we're having a look at a more heated match in the Narwhal. In other videos I've shown you where this plane can perform to the peak of its ability as a ground attacker, which is a good opportunity to show just the individual challenge of taking out ground targets effectively, and you'll see some of my shots just passing through the enemy tank. When they're a little bit too low, they don't register on the suspension of the tank, they just pass through. It can be a little frustrating, but if you aim for the right spots, you do get kills consistently. What was this saying? I keep getting distracted. There are enemies on my tail, but I'm outrunning them. Again, when I've said in other videos that you want to keep your speed up, that's the reason. Currently, I am in a match with... Are there a few jets in this one? I think there's one or two jets, but mostly props, and they're going to be just latching onto me and turning toward me, chasing me down. We're already getting to... no, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to get into a point where I'm one of the only people left on my team, and I just have a cloud of enemies chasing me. But now you see that there are 3 enemies within view, and at least 2 of them are interested in me, and having taken a shot to an engine, I'm going to be losing performance. And with this plane, performance is the only thing that you rely on to protect yourself. I'm not interested in dogfighting with the Spitfire, so I'm heading back to base, flying very low, just in case he's following me. I don't have time to fly low to the ground with a damaged plane and look behind me, but we made it back to base, and I'm skipping over the repair and returning to the area of operation. I'm back to my old tricks, engaging ground targets. And there's 3 things you have to do in the Narwhal when you're striking ground targets. You have to hit your target in an area that will take it out. That's not the easiest thing to do, but you'll get the hang of that eventually. You have to keep your defensive abilities up. Now what do I mean by that? You need to maintain a very high speed, and you have to have angles where the enemy can't easily intercept you. And you also have to keep your awareness up to know what's going on in the battlefield. Are there enemy jets that can catch you in the area? Is there allied support to defend you or distract the enemy, and other considerations like that, a tactical awareness, if you will. And then the 3rd thing you have to do, and this is the hardest thing at first, but it never stops being a consideration, See how close I came to that tree? You have to pull out from your attack run before you hit something solid. And there's a lot of wing on the ME262 when you're 100 meters from a tree going 500 miles per hour. And I know I'm mixing metric and, what is that, imperial? But, that's what I do. I can't fathom speed in kilometers per hour, and yet I'm so used to using distance in metric in this game. I'm just weird. Okay, so I'm showing you what is a more heated match in the ME262, and it doesn't seem all that hot yet, but it's gonna heat up, trust me. I'm the only one left on my team, and with this enemy plane coming in, I go ahead and take a few shots at him. I'm not really trying to shoot anybody out of the sky, but it doesn't hurt to let them think that I am. That's gonna change. They're not gonna know what I'm gonna do next if I seem, in those few critical seconds, to be an aggressive player by taking a few shots in the head-on. It's less important that I hit with those shots, more important that they see that I'm taking them. And you see a few tracers come in our area, but just from the spread, I knew that they were shots taken at range, and I was just starting to pass out of their effective range, so I just keep my foot on the gas and blow through the area. And now I've deviated from my regular attack pattern because I know that I'm being directly targeted by multiple enemies. I'm giving myself plenty of room to maintain my speed so that I can make additional attack runs. And here we're coming in on more ground targets. Again, there's part 1, taking out the target. Part 2, keeping an awareness of what's going on around me, checking my 6, keeping track in my head of who's hunting me and what their position will be by the time I make my turn. And I'm still committed to making a difference in this game, so I'm going to be continuing to make attack runs in this active combat zone. I'm not being a passive player, even though I'm not trying to take out enemy aircraft. There's very few planes that can win matches without shooting down fighters, but the ME262 is one of those planes. If you have enough time to take down ground targets, and especially if there are, and here I am flying defensively again, simple maneuvers just enough to not give the enemy a steady aim on me, and sometimes I'll fly while looking behind me and following their tracers. That makes it very easy to dodge. You just guess where they're aiming, usually it's right for you, and they either aim high or low, a little bit high or a little bit low. And if you think they're going to aim low, you pull up. If you think they're going to aim high, you pull down, and you get a feel for it. That, I guess I'd call that bucking. It's a reasonably energy efficient form of dodging, and it's a way in which you can keep your speed up, because when you buck up, you bank some energy, and then when you angle down again, you retain that energy into speed. And here we are landing once again at the base, and at this point I was running away because my baby was crying for food, so I'm actually mixing up a bottle when that, what was that, an FIF, blows off my wing and then YOLOs into the runway. He really didn't have to do that. I think he could have survived the match and taken me out. Airfield AA, I think, suitably has been decreased. So let's go into another match and take a look at defensive flying in the Narwhal. Now this one is a evening battle with low visibility, so let's take a moment to talk about something that perhaps might be a little bit controversial. I always turn down my white setting on post effects, so you go into any of the options menus. You can find this in graphics, or you can find this in the general game options. Go to bottom left, post effects, turn down that white until you can see the ground, and then I call that good. Now, why do I do this? Well, I like playing a game where I can see what's going on. Now, if everybody had the same disadvantage and nobody could see what's going on, then, you know, it would be fun to play in maybe a few night battles every now and then, where it's very difficult to see anything, and it's just a great accomplishment to accomplish anything in the match. But I would rather just play this attacker as an actual attacker, and realistically, nobody would be sending out this plane in conditions where it can't see its target, or even the landing strip, because there are no lights on runways during night battles. Gaijin, that might be a thing to implement. Maybe we could start a conversation on that, especially with the frequency of night battles these days. But I'm rambling. Let's cut to the focus of tonight's video. Those light tanks are moving pretty fast. Think I can hit one? And boom goes the dynamite. So we've officially started our attack run. I don't always target those light tanks because they're very small targets and don't give the best reward. But I have a mission today. I think it's a special task, so worth focusing on. To, in 2 matches, win the match and get more than 2,300 points. Now, in ground attack with the Narwhal, it is not difficult to harvest that many points, but in some matches, you're not going to survive the match. So, I'm trying to get to that 2,300 point mark as quickly as possible, and taking down a medium tank there is a big help in that task. And I'm starting to get shots from an enemy plane, so just a little bit of defensive flying. I don't think he had much of a shot at me. Either he pulled away, or maybe that was just ground-based AA. No less bothersome lately. It seems Gaijin always vacillates between having overpowered ground AA and useless ground AA, and I like to see it being useless. That's definitely 50 cal fire. Looks like 650 cal, so that's probably a P51H5. The ultralight P51 with the water injected engine. Has a limited WEP, but it's like 7 minutes of fantastic performance that's available to that plane. So a very deadly opponent, especially in early to mid-match. He dove on me, but seeing that my speed was up, he decided to go look for easier targets without overextending. A good tactical decision on his part. And we've taken out another medium tank. We're going to have to be turning around at some point, and I get the feeling that P51 still wants to scratch off a Narwhal from his kill list, so we'll be seeing him again. And this is a video entitled, well, something along the lines of defensive flying in the Narwhal. And again, because we're not committing to engagements, we're not going to be trying to pull reversals, we're just trying to survive. Get raked a little bit by 50 cals, but the Narwhal is very tough in its airframe, so we're able to sustain that damage. And now we're flying low, which means that we can't really look behind us. But I'm just kind of getting a feel for where he's aiming, letting him spray. He only has a few seconds where his rounds can catch me, and we've managed to escape. Take a shot at that armored car, no sauce, but no problem. Again, at this point, just in case I die, I'm trying to rack up that 2,300 points quickly. I'm focusing on my special task today, not really trying to carry the match in the Narwhal. It's rare that one of these planes has an opportunity to do so, and in my hands, it's a rare thing indeed. Now we are leaking oil from one of our engines, so I'm considering returning to base here, but I would like at least to take one more pass on enemy tanks. And now might be a good time to mention that I've changed my graphics around a little bit, besides exploiting the white feature on post effects. I've recently changed the color of allied and enemy vehicles just to see if that makes them a little more visible, because I use a television set on the other side of the living room from myself to play the game on, and from those distances and with the light settings of the TV, it's often difficult to see the names on screen at night. I'm talking about real life nighttime. My TV screen darkens itself at night, which is a nice feature, I suppose, but it does give me a lot less chance to see what's going on the screen. Maybe that's another reason I don't dogfight in this thing, but I think it just comes down more to personal preference. And I'm bleeding speed as I lose performance from that damaged engine. Luckily, no one focused on me to take me down at this point, and, I mean, even while bleeding speed, the Narwhal is still capable of speeds in the area of 400 miles per hour, so I was able to make it back to base in short order, and I'll just cut till we get back into the action. So you see we have mission objective complete. That was to defend Blankenfeld, and I think that's a nice touch to maps like this, where ground attackers can destroy tanks and get a little bit of extra victory point drain from the enemy team by defending ground objectives. And conversely, if you can take out those attackers and protect your tanks, then you can drain some points from the enemy team. Lots of maps are set up that way. A lot of people consider them auto-win conditions from the attacker's point of view, or defender, depending upon which one would automatically happen. And it gives attackers like me an opportunity to extend our influence on the battle. And I'd say maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5 matches I can actually win with the Narwhal by ground points. And how cool was that? Double kill on enemy heavy tanks. That's pretty neat. And defensive fire coming up from those AI AA trucks. And unlike Japanese AI AA trucks, they're not all that dangerous. Have you guys encountered those crazy Japanese AA trucks? It's insanity. They're worse than airfield AA right now. But maybe they haven't been adjusted as much as other AA. Who's to say? I don't really know all that much about what's going on behind the scenes in this game. I'm just experiencing it from my limited point of view. So, we've taken a look at where the enemy is on the map, and they don't seem to be in my area directly, so we've got some freedom to engage ground targets at our leisure. And we're sitting at the top of the team, which is always a little bit nice, but the rewards for killing ground targets are not what they used to be, so I'm not flying the Narwhal today for profit. It's purely a matter of pleasure at this point. And it's very reliable for getting at the top of the team. Again, busting tanks is worth a lot of points. And there's a rare thing. I got a hit on that enemy heavy tank, but not a destruction. That's quite rare. Generally, if you do hit an enemy vehicle and the armor doesn't block it or bounce it, then you'll get a kill. And look at how fast that heavy tank is moving. That's just insanity. And yet we're able to get that killing shot, so it can be done. And it's one of those things that you just have to get a feel for. And it really is, it has been quite the learning process for me. Now, there was a Spitfire in the area, but he hasn't been targeting me, and that may be his mistake, because I've been draining points from the enemy team, and at this point, it's critical. 3 or 4 more heavy tanks, and we've got the match. So, I'm getting excited, but if you look at my ammo count, I only have 7 rounds left. I haven't been as efficient as possible with my rounds, just because, you know, if you really try for maximum efficiency, sometimes you'll end up efficiently slamming your airplane into a tree. So there's a balancing act. And we're down to 5 rounds. But if I can pick up 2 or 3 heavy tank kills, we might get this one. And it looks like enemy bombers on the enemy team are destroying each other, which is always nice. They've gone into Soviet mode, I suppose. The purges have begun. The Italians also engaged in some rather brutal, you'd call it discipline, but you know, the disciplinary measures at the end of a pistol, or a hangman's noose for troops who were considered to be under-enthusiastic for the war. They instituted, I've been told, what's called the decimatio, which is where you wipe out 1 in 10 of your own forces if you feel that morale is not as high as it should be. And speaking of which, myself and another Narwhal were able to secure victory for our team with the help of the actions of our allies. The enemy team is defeated because their ground units have been wiped out, draining out their victory points. Now, that match, not so much defensive flying, but again it gave you the full package for what the Narwhal can contribute to the battlefield in air RB. Maybe someday I'll get more in-depth in how to fly the Narwhal in tank RB, but by no means am I an expert. I'm just another sort of a fan, I suppose, of this aircraft. It's a lot of fun, it's weird, it's different, and it's capable of performing in the environment within the game that it finds itself. And that makes it one of my favorite aircraft to fly. Reliable, fun, exotic. Anyway guys, with that blindness screen, have a nice night. Don't forget to adjust your post effects, and I'll catch you in War Thunder. Bye bye.